Welcome to the Providence College podcast. I'm Stacia Walmsley, here with Sarah Burke and Matt Maurano from our Office of Admission. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about recruiting the next class of Friars, the class of 2029 to Providence College. Thank you for being here today.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. So I'm wondering if you could tell me first a little bit, and Sarah, we can start with you, to explain a little bit about what it means to be an admission counselor. What are some of the things you do to recruit students, work with students, to help them learn a little bit about Providence College?
Yeah, absolutely. Our job here is to really support students at every part of the process. And that starts whenever a student is ready to talk to us. So juniors as well, answering questions about programs. We run a lot of events here on campus when students come visit. And we hit the road in the fall. We go to a lot of different high schools to chat with students one-on-one. We go to college fairs. And then, of course, we also have the privilege of reading their applications once they've submitted them.
And Matt, you've been doing this for a little while too, right?
Yeah. And this is year 17 for me in the office. That sounds really weird to say out loud. I feel like I was a prospective student last week. But yeah, I think one of the things that I really like about this is that it's very cyclical in nature. Every 3 months is something different. Like Sarah and I are starting travel season right now. And just as soon as we are getting tired of traveling and being on the road, then we are transitioning to reading applications. And then once that wraps up, we turn into event planners and start to welcome all the invited students to campus for different targeted yield events and things like that. And then we're still pretty busy in the summer welcoming visitors and families, oftentimes getting their first look at Providence during those summer months.
Yeah, I've been
Once again.
Yeah, right. Then it keeps going. I was just going to say that I am on campus during the summer, and I can't believe how many people come and tour. And it's a beautiful time to see campus. But now we're in the fall. We're recording this in late September. Mm-hmm. So could you talk a little bit about where we are in the process?
Yeah. So as I alluded to earlier, we're in the beginning of travel season for us. So me, Sarah, the rest of the staff are going across the country to different high schools and college fairs. We are visiting, I think it's just right around 1,000 different high schools this fall. And the goal for us is to meet as many students as we can, to talk to them about the things that Providence College has to offer and what makes us unique and makes us stand out a little bit. Answer their questions. You know, a lot of times the students have already visited campus, and so they have a pretty good familiarity with who we are and what we're all about, but they have more targeted questions like, what are the experiences of a political science student? Or what can I expect as a first-year student coming from outside of New England? And so we're happy to answer all of that. Basically, our goal is to get them to apply to Providence College so that we can build an applicant pool and then start the selection process that way.
So for those students who are really looking now to prepare their applications, to get everything in order to apply to Providence College, what do you recommend they prioritize? What are we really looking for in an applicant when we get their applications?
This is a great question. So for seniors who are applying this year, it's fall of their senior year. And they have a lot of the materials together, whether they know it or not. Their academic record exists. They've done well in their classes. They're ready to send in things like their transcripts. And so right now, where they can really focus their attention are the parts of the application that they get to write that tell us about them as a person. So their activity lists, the essay. At Providence, we had a little over 1,200 students come in last year, which is really exciting. And some high school students might think that's a huge number, but in the spectrum of colleges, it's pretty small. And so we want to know that the students that we're inviting here are going to contribute to our community. And so we get a sense of what they're interested in through things like their activity list and their essay. And so I always recommend students prioritize those at this point.
Yeah. No, I think that makes good sense. I know we are welcoming this year our second class of nursing students. And I understand the application process is a little different for them. Is that right?
Yeah. So it's our third class of nursing students that we're currently recruiting for. And so we are definitely looking at those a little bit differently. Nursing is our only direct entry program here at Providence, and that means that students can't transition into that program later. They have to come in as nursing students. And so we are definitely looking a little closer at things like their math and their science preparation to make sure that they're going to excel in that program. This is the first year that we have an optional nursing supplement that our nursing students will have the opportunity to complete. It's not required, so similar to the supplement on the Common App, it's optional. but they get to share a little bit more about their interests specifically in nursing and specifically at Providence. And so that's a new thing that they'll see this year.
And because we're on this topic, I'm curious to know a little bit about our test optional policy. This question comes up even, for friends of mine that know I work at Providence College, and because we were, so early in adopting a test optional policy, but we still get a lot of questions about it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think because the test occupies a lot of brain space in pop culture and just in like high schoolers' lives, like it's a big source of stress for a lot of them and their families. But yeah, you're correct. I mean, Providence was one of the first private schools to move towards a test optional policy. And for us, I think the easiest way to explain that is that the philosophy behind being a test optional school is that we think 3.5 years of a student's record in high school and what they've done in and out of the classroom is a lot more indicative of their fit to Providence College than the 3.5 hours it takes them to take a test on Saturday.
Yeah.
I kind of joke with families because I know this year they're shortening the test from 3.5 hours to 3 hours. So like, congratulations, everyone. Yeah, that's fun. But also to kind of like reinforce the test optional policy that we have from last year's applicant pool, over 70% of students did not submit a test score to us. And so we think the message is getting across to families. When students visit, we always tell them that a test score is really the least important factor in your admission decision. Sarah talked about all the things that, we want to see from students in that personal aspect, and that absolutely always outweighs anything that a standardized test score is going to tell us.
Yeah, and it's funny because we're sitting outside here today. We're getting kind of a view of campus, and we see student athletes out. We see other activities going on campus. So I can understand how there's that test would only be a piece of what you're looking for. The other question I wanted to ask that's an important piece of applying to college, and certainly what's on families' mind, is paying for college. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the conversations you're having with families about paying for college, because we are a private institution. We always hear that people may have a bit of sticker shock with college across the board, not just at Providence College. So, what kind of conversations are you able to have with families as they're considering PC?
Yeah, so as an admissions team, we're definitely cognizant of that price tag. I like to tell families that I talk to that 82% of our first-year students receive some sort of aid package here from Providence. And so I encourage all families to certainly apply for financial aid here. We have merit scholarships, and there's no extra application for that. But we do have a lot of need-based aid that we're able to give out here as well. I know the FAFSA has been in the news a lot lately, and it's going to be a little bit delayed this year. So students won't be able to submit that likely until sometime in December. But we do have deadlines posted on our website, and we are committed to being flexible, this year, and working with families to try to make sure we can get aid out to students in a timely manner.
Yeah, I know that families were in the same boat last year. Mm-hmm. You all were in the same boat last year, kind of making sure that we were up to date and we were sharing as much up to date information as possible about the FAFSA. Unfortunately, we're going into another bit of uncertainty, but I think it's great that we have that kind of assurances. We'll keep things up on the website and stuff like that.
And the best thing students can do is just keep updated, read their emails, and try to make the deadlines that we do have posted.
Yeah. Okay, that's wonderful. I was referring to the fact that we're just welcomed the class of 2028, moving towards recruiting the class of 2029. But this incoming class, 10% of all students were first in their family to go to college, or are first in their family to attend college, which is exciting, and really exciting for the college because it's kind of really baked into the mission going back over 100 years to bring in first and family students. But I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what that means once students get here, who might be their first generation to go to college. Like, what support systems does the college have once they are on campus to make that comfortable for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, first of all, there are great resources for all students, not just first-gen students. I think the development of the Student Success Center in the library and the staff they have there are great resources for students. But yeah, specifically for first-gen students, I think Providence has done a really good job of creating a program called PC1G. that has really stepped up the mentorship and like the one-on-one relationship that students have that are first generation coming here, because oftentimes, and they don't know to ask certain questions, right? And they don't know because they haven't had a mentor to tell them to ask these questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think giving those students that one-on-one relationship is really like kind of a hallmark of PC in general, right? Like we always talk about the smaller community that exists here. And I think the PC1G program kind of mirrors that on a smaller scale. So students get paired up with faculty and staff that were also first generation college students, so that they can help them navigate, as well as students, right? That student mentorship and having like an older student kind of guide them through their first couple months as students at Providence, I think has made a really big impact with first generation students. And it's one of the more successful new initiatives that the college has done in the past couple of years.
And since you mentioned the Student Success Center and as a resource for all students, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what do they do at the Student Success Center?
Yeah. So the Student Success Center, I always pitch it to students as like, here's where you go to ask a question if you don't know who else to ask this to. And they can either give you an answer there because they're super knowledgeable and they know a lot about campus, or they can at least point you in the right direction of who do you need to talk to, whether it's a question about study abroad, or you're thinking of adding a minor, or you have a question about a residence life, like literally anything on campus. And I know that the Student Success Center was kind of designed to be like the one-stop shop to get your questions answered.
So we're sitting here on campus. It's beautiful, early fall day, late September. What opportunities do students have to come to campus and experience what it's like to be a PC student here, whether or not they've had a chance to visit before or this is their first time? What do you recommend they do over the next several months?
Yeah, so visiting campus is really a great way for students to decide where Providence falls on their college list as they're thinking about sending in their applications and things like that. We have an October open house this year. It's October 5th. That is definitely the largest event we have in the fall, but there are so many options for students to visit outside of that as well. So we are open Monday through Saturday from now through November for tours, so students can come check it out that way. This year, we are doing something called Preview Providence, which are school-specific options for students to come to learn more about, say, the School of Nursing and Health Sciences or the School of Business. And so those are great options as well. We have virtual info sessions too. If students aren't able to quite get to campus but want to learn a little bit more, all of our options are being kind of continually updated on our website. And we really urge students to see if anything kind of fits with their schedule.
So you just mentioned Preview Providence. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, because my understanding is that's somewhat new in terms of students being able to come for specific, school-specific information, correct?
Yeah, so we used to offer an event in the summer called Preview Providence that was just one day, and it was a bit more like a summer open house. We've split that event up now, and so students are able to come. They'll learn about the admissions process from one of us or our colleagues, and then we also invite leadership from our different schools to come talk and present to students about each of the schools, and then they get to go on a tour that largely features those spaces as well. So it's a great opportunity to learn more about schools if students know what they're interested in, but know too that a lot of students don't know what they're interested in, and this can be a great option to learn more about the college in general. So students can feel free to sign up, regardless.
Yeah, that's great. And I know so many students come in undeclared, and that's part of what the Student Success Center can help folks figure out, know, which direction they might want to go in. So I imagine for these visit options, open house specifically, you see a lot more than just prospective students. You see all these families come and visit, right? And some who may have attended PC themselves, right? But when you think about the admission process, can you talk a little bit about how you include the whole family as part of the process?
Yeah, I think that's definitely been a shift for us in the office. I think back of like my time when I first started here, and now looking at it in like current times, that you're really, like you said, you're recruiting the family and not just one student anymore. And so I think that we are a lot more intentional with the way that our programming works about like when students come for these visit opportunities that Sarah talked about. There is a student component, and then there's also a parent component. So instead of just the parents dropping them off and saying like, okay, pick you up at the end of the day. Like now there are specific things where parents are learning about the different resources that exist on campus.
And I would add to that as well, one program that I didn't mention that I absolutely should highlight, we have a shadowing program called Day in Friartown, where seniors specifically can come to campus and get paired up with a current student. That takes place throughout the fall. And there is a parent-specific component of that. So once the students go off to their classes, the parents get to hear from a senior member of the admissions department about things that a little bit more pertain to their interests.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. That I'm sure that's very much appreciated.
Yeah.
So we're moving towards some of the admission deadlines. There's a lot of options, right? I think a little different than when I was going to college. It wasn't many. There may be some schools had early decision, but now there are many.
The full menu.
Yeah, there's a full menu of options which is great for students who want to make a choice or figure out where they may want to apply over the course of their learning about colleges and universities. Talk to me a little bit about what Providence College offers and what you might recommend for students in terms of what they might want to prioritize applying to.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have two main deadlines. So the first one that's coming up is November 1st. That is for students who want to apply Early Decision 1 or Early Action. These are our first deadlines. Early Decision is a binding program, so it's a great option if we are at the top of a student's list and they know that they want to be a friar. But we're not a school where everyone comes through Early Decision. About 30% of our class is typically from Early Decision. Early Action is not binding, so it's an opportunity for students to get their stuff into us and get an admissions decision quicker, but they don't have to commit until May 1st, so they have that flexibility in that time. Early Action is a great option for students who have those ducks in a row and are ready to check it off the to-do list, send things in. But we also have a January 15th deadline. That's for regular decision and Early Decision 2. This is a great option, particularly if students are having a phenomenal senior year. Students who apply Early Action or Early Decision 1, we don't see that work in their senior year. We see what classes they are taking, but we don't see their performance in those classes. And so for students that are having a great senior year and want to share that with us, regular decision does provide them an option where we'll see those mid-year grades. And so that's great if a student maybe had a little bit of a harder start to high school or just really wants to showcase some of that work in their senior year.
And what somebody applies to, which option, does that have any bearing on financial aid?
It does not, no. That's a great question.
Yeah.
The deadlines are different for each of these rounds. And so from that sense, the deadlines are different. So they need to meet different deadlines depending on the round. But the financial aid process works much the same way.
And scholarship too. So like, for example, someone that applies to Providence Early Action, they'll get the same financial aid and scholarship award that they would have gotten had they applied any other admission deadline or any other method. So yeah, it's completely like non-discriminatory in that way.
Oh, that's great. I'm sure families are happy to hear that.
Yeah. And every year, Early Action tends to be our largest application round.
Yep.
Students like hearing back quicker, but it also gives students a lot more power in the process, I think. They have all spring to revisit campuses and think through their options. Regular decision's fantastic. You have 6 weeks usually to make your decision once you find out from Providence. And so Early Action just has a little bit more flexibility, which is why I think we're seeing students gravitate towards that.
Yeah.
And I think you've both been doing this for a little while now. Matt, you just mentioned that, what did you say, 17 years? Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up again, Stacia. Yeah, appreciate that.
So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit, if you were to think back to yourself at 17, what would you tell a 17-year-old, 18-year-old you trying to apply to college, trying to think about college, how to approach it, because I think that so many students it's exciting, but it can also be anxiety inducing, right? Yeah. So I'm wondering if you could give a little advice in that respect.
Yeah, definitely. Looking back on my college search, I did the tours. I didn't go to like any of the bigger events that schools offered, which is okay. But I think that the best advice that I can give students is to try to connect with as many current students on the campuses that they're looking at. We always say that the students are our best resource in terms of showing them what campus is like and authentically answering their questions about campus life and academic experiences and things like that. So regardless of whether you're looking at Providence or any other place, I would try to connect with as many current students as possible and get as much face time with the current students. And that's going to really help you out deciding if you think you're going to be a good fit on that campus.
Yeah, we have on our social media accounts, there's some short videos that we've been doing and producing, I know, that are about a day in the life of students, right? Yeah. So stuff like that, I think you're right. It can give a real feel for what Providence College day-to-day is like. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about you, Sarah?
I would echo some of what Matt's saying. I remember when I was applying to college, I was stressed. I toured a lot of different colleges. And I remember really prioritizing the academic components, which are obviously extremely important in the college search. But I think my advice to my 17-year-old self would have been permission to also prioritize the community side of things.
Yeah.
You're joining a community for 4 years while you're on campus, but for the rest of your life as an alumni. And so kind of looking around campus, envisioning yourself there, talking to the students, talking to the people. I mean, these will be your friends for life. You might meet your spouse there. You'll be going to alumni events for the rest of time. And so just thinking through that the community part is equally valid. We have a phenomenal community here at Providence. I think it's something that attracts a lot of students to us. And I think I just wish I'd gone back and really told 17-year-old me that that is equally as important as the academic piece.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been great. Is there anything that we hadn't touched on that you wanted to mention about? I know we went over a lot of things. The other resource that you were telling me about before we jumped on camera was webinars, right? Yeah. So we offer webinars as well.
Yeah, I think our admission page is really helpful, both in terms of like the PC website, but also the different YouTube and webinar pieces that we offer too. Because it's tough to cover all of admission in just a short amount of time. Sure. There's a lot of depth about what we do and the different aspects of a successful application. So we try to make a lot of those resources available online. We're re-recording webinars all the time. So we're used to all that. It's a lot of fun.
That's great.
Yeah. And I would tell students, don't be shy to reach out. I think the reason we stay in this job, the reason we love it, is the interactions with students. And I think sometimes students don't necessarily want to reach out to their admissions counselor. We seem maybe a little scary. Yeah. But we are absolutely not that. We love hearing from students. We love hearing from students' families, particularly as they're kind of zoning in on that choice and kind of ready to make those college decisions. They have a lot of questions, and that is why we're here. That's our job. And so I always encourage students to reach out.
That's terrific. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Matt. Thank you for joining us on the PC podcast today. And don't forget about Open House on October 5th.